The Oregon highway stretched endlessly under a bruised November sky, its asphalt ribbon cutting through pine forests that seemed to swallow sound itself. Marcus Reaper Sullivan pulled his Harley onto the gravel shoulder, the engine's rumble dying to silence that felt almost accusatory. At 53, with 30 years in the Devil's Brotherhood, he'd ridden every road west of the Mississippi. But today, grief had turned familiar territory into a maze of identical exits and indistinguishable towns. His daughter Sarah had been gone 3 weeks. The cancer had moved faster than any of them expected, and he'd missed her final days chasing a route to Seattle that suddenly seemed pointless. The funeral was tomorrow in Portland, and somewhere between rage and sorrow, he'd gotten completely turned around. His phone lay shattered in a rest-stop bathroom 200 miles back, victim of a moment when the walls closed in. The bike's GPS had died an hour ago. Paper maps were relics he'd never bothered carrying. Marcus sat heavily on the shoulder, leather vest creaking, and pressed calloused palms against eyes that burned with exhaustion and unshed tears. Around him, the forest whispered with wind, indifferent to human suffering. A small sedan slowed, hesitated, then pulled behind his bike. Marcus tensed instinctively. Years of living outside society's comfortable borders had taught him wariness. But the woman who emerged was barely 5 feet tall, perhaps 25, with worried eyes and a medical mask hanging around her neck. Her accent carried the particular precision of someone who'd learned English as a second language. "Are you okay? You need help?" She kept a respectful distance, reading the patches on his vest, the skull insignia, the warning embedded in every stitch. But her concern seemed genuine, untainted by the fear or judgment he usually encountered. Marcus looked at this unlikely rescuer and felt something crack inside his chest. Lin Chen had been driving to her shift at the Portland hospital when she spotted the massive motorcycle pulled awkwardly onto the shoulder. As an emergency room nurse, she'd developed instincts for recognizing crisis in body language. The slumped shoulders, the face buried in hands, the stillness that suggested someone had simply stopped knowing what to do next. The biker's appearance might have intimidated others, but Lin had grown up in Chongqing, where her grandfather had taught her that suffering recognized no borders or uniforms. "I'm lost," Marcus finally admitted, the words tasting like failure. "Need to get to Portland. Funeral tomorrow." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Lin's expression softened with understanding that needed no explanation. She pulled out her phone, quickly mapping the route, then paused. "You are very far from main highway," she said gently. "Many small roads here, very confusing." She studied him carefully, noting the exhaustion, the red-rimmed eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly. "When did you last eat? Sleep?" Marcus couldn't remember. Time had become elastic, meaningless. Lin made a decision that would have horrified her cautious parents. "There is a diner, 15 minutes ahead. You follow me there, yes? You need food, need rest. Then I draw a map, very clear, to Portland." Every instinct told Marcus to refuse, to push through alone as he always had. But something in this stranger's steady gaze, the simple human kindness offered without expectation, made him nod. He'd spent 30 years in a brotherhood built on loyalty and strength, but he'd forgotten that vulnerability could be its own kind of courage. Lin returned to her car, checked her mirrors, and pulled slowly back onto the highway. Behind her, the Harley's engine roared to life, following her taillights through the darkening afternoon like a lost ship following a lighthouse home. The diner was exactly the kind of place Marcus had stopped at thousands of times. Vinyl booths, checkered floor, coffee that could strip paint. But he'd never entered one feeling this hollow, this grateful for guidance. Lin chose a corner booth away from the scattered afternoon customers, her nurse's instinct seeking privacy for someone clearly struggling. She ordered soup and coffee for both of them without asking, somehow knowing he lacked the capacity for decisions. "I am Lin," she said simply, "from China, 5 years in America, work at Good Samaritan Hospital." She spoke matter-of-factly, offering information to establish trust without demanding his story in return. Marcus appreciated the discretion. Most people either asked too many questions or maintained a nervous silence that felt like judgment. "Marcus. Most call me Reaper." He saw her slight reaction to the road name, the momentary assessment. "It's just a name. Earned it riding rescue during a bad storm years back, pulling brothers from accidents. Grim Reaper, but reversed, bringing people back instead of taking them away." The explanation seemed to ease something in Lin's expression. The soup arrived, and she pushed his bowl closer with a gentle insistence that reminded Marcus achingly of Sarah when she'd been small, worried about her father's tendency to forget meals during long runs. He ate mechanically, the warmth spreading through him, revealing just how cold and empty he'd become. "Your funeral," Lin said quietly. "Family." The question was delicate, giving him space to share or decline. Marcus found himself talking, words spilling out in the anonymous safety of this roadside booth. He told her about Sarah, about missing her final days, about the guilt that rode heavier than any motorcycle ever could. Lin listened with the focused attention of someone who'd seen too much death to offer platitudes, who understood that sometimes presence mattered more than words. Lin pulled a paper placemat toward her and began sketching a map with precise, careful strokes. "The highway system here is like spiderweb," she explained. "Easy to take wrong exit, end up very far from destination." Her pen marked major routes, noting landmarks in both English and quick Chinese characters that helped her own navigation. "You are here. Portland is here. Tomorrow morning, you take Route 26 west, then merge to I-5 south." She wrote her phone number at the bottom, then hesitated before adding the hospital's main line. "If you get lost again, you call, okay? I work night shift tonight, but phone always on." The gesture was so completely trusting, so at odds with the wariness Marcus typically encountered, that he felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of human connection. "Why are you helping me?" The question emerged rougher than intended. "You don't know me. Could be dangerous." It was almost a challenge, testing whether her kindness had limits, whether she'd suddenly recognize the risk she was taking. Lin met his eyes steadily, and he saw steel beneath the gentleness. "In my country, we have saying, when you save a life, you are responsible for it forever. I think maybe today you needed saving. Not from danger, from being lost in more ways than roads." Her English stumbled slightly on the philosophy, but the meaning landed with perfect clarity. "Also, my grandfather always said, judge person by their eyes, not their clothes. Your eyes are sad, not cruel. Sad, I can help." Marcus stared at this improbable guardian angel in her sensible Honda, her nurse's scrubs visible under a practical jacket, her expression combining professional assessment with genuine compassion. Tomorrow, he would bury his daughter. Today, a stranger had reminded him that the world still contained unexpected grace. He carefully folded the map, tucking it into his vest pocket like a talisman. They parted in the diner parking lot as evening settled over the small Oregon town. Lin extracted a promise that Marcus would find a motel, sleep properly, arrive at the funeral rested enough to honor his daughter's memory. "She would not want you to suffer more because of exhaustion," Lin said, with the gentle firmness of someone accustomed to convincing reluctant patients to accept care. Marcus found himself agreeing, touched by her concern. He watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the November darkness, then sat on his bike in the cooling air. The map she'd drawn rested against his chest, and he pulled out his phone. No, still broken, but the address of the funeral home was burned into his memory. Tomorrow, He would ride those roads she'd mapped, would stand beside Sarah's casket, would face his ex-wife's accusing silence and his own crushing failure. But tonight, for the first time since the call that shattered his world, Marcus didn't feel entirely alone. A stranger's kindness had cracked something open inside him, letting in light he didn't know he desperately needed. He started the engine, following Lin's directions to a nearby motel, and for once, the road ahead seemed navigable. The motel was cheap but clean, the kind of place that didn't ask questions about patches or affiliations. Marcus lay on the thin mattress staring at ceiling tiles and allowed himself to finally, fully grieve. The tears came hard and bitter, 30 years of suppressed emotion channeled into mourning a daughter who deserved better than an absent father riding away from responsibility. But beneath the anguish ran a thread of something unexpected. Gratitude for Lin's intervention, recognition that even in darkness, strangers could appear bearing exactly the light needed to find the way home. He slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The funeral was exactly as terrible as Marcus expected. Sarah's mother, Janet, maintained icy distance, her silence more damning than accusations. Other mourners offered condolences that felt like indictments. Where had he been? Why had he waited so long? Didn't he care enough to be present when it mattered? Marcus endured it all, standing beside the casket, studying his daughter's peaceful face, and memorizing every detail he'd failed to notice while she lived. But Lin's map had gotten him here on time. Her kindness had given him the strength to face this day upright instead of destroyed. During the service, when the pastor invited people to share memories, Marcus surprised himself by standing. His voice, roughened by years of engine roar and cigarette smoke, shook but held as he spoke about Sarah's fierce intelligence, her stubborn independence inherited directly from him, the way she'd never quite given up hoping her father would finally come home for good. "I failed her," he said simply, addressing the room but looking at Janet. "I spent 30 years riding away from everything that mattered, thinking the road was freedom. But real freedom was right here, in being present, being accountable, being the father she deserved. Yesterday, a stranger showed me more grace than I've earned in a lifetime. She didn't know me, didn't judge me, just helped because I needed help. Sarah was like that too. Kind beyond reason, generous beyond logic. I'm going to try to honor that now. Going to try to be the man Sarah believed I could become." The words hung in the air. Janet's expression cracked slightly, tears finally falling. After the service, she approached him in the parking lot. "She never stopped loving you," Janet said quietly, "never stopped hoping you'd find your way back." Marcus nodded, unable to speak, and they stood together in shared grief. Ex-spouses united briefly by their daughter's memory. Marcus returned to the Devil's Brotherhood clubhouse in Seattle 3 days later, changed in ways that defied easy explanation. His brothers noticed immediately something in his bearing, a quietness that suggested depth rather than weakness. During church, the club's weekly meeting, he requested permission to speak and told them about Sarah, about getting lost, about Lin's unexpected intervention. "We talk about brotherhood," Marcus said, addressing the room of leather and chrome and hard men who'd become his family. "About loyalty, about standing together against a world that doesn't understand us. But yesterday I learned something. Real strength isn't just about protecting our own. It's about recognizing when we need help, about accepting kindness from unlikely places, about maybe offering that same grace to others." The club president, a grizzled veteran called Prophet, studied Marcus carefully. "You saying we should go soft, Reaper? Start running charity rides?" There was an edge to the question, testing whether grief had made Marcus weak or wise. Marcus shook his head. "I'm saying a Chinese nurse showed more brotherhood to a stranger than I've shown to people I claim to love. She didn't owe me anything, didn't stand to gain anything, just helped because it was right." Made me think about who we actually are versus who we claim to be. He paused, choosing words carefully. I want to go back, thank her properly, and I'm asking if some of you want to ride with me. The room went silent. This wasn't typical club business. No territory disputes, no runs, no enforcement actions, just a brother asking for support in repaying a debt of kindness. Prophet leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his weathered face. Church is adjourned. Let's talk about a ride to Oregon. Around the table, men began to nod, intrigued by this unexpected mission. Lin worked her night shift at Good Samaritan Hospital, moving efficiently through the emergency department's familiar chaos. She'd largely forgotten about the lost biker from a week ago, though occasionally she wondered if he'd made it to Portland, if the funeral had brought any peace. The encounter had been brief but touching, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness rippled outward in ways impossible to measure. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. She walked to her car through the grey November morning, planning nothing more ambitious than sleep and groceries. The hospital parking structure was nearly empty at this hour, most night staff already departed. Lin's Honda sat alone on the third level, exactly where she'd left it 12 hours earlier. She unlocked the door, tossed her bag inside, and was about to climb in when a sound made her turn. The rumble started low, growing louder with each second. Not one engine, but dozens, hundreds perhaps, a rolling thunder that echoed through the concrete structure. Lin froze, confused and slightly frightened, as motorcycles began appearing at the entrance ramp, filling the parking level with chrome and leather and overwhelming noise. They surrounded her car in a wide circle, engines idling in synchronized rhythm, faces hidden behind helmets and sunglasses. Then the engines cut off simultaneously, and in the sudden silence, one rider dismounted. Lin recognized him immediately. Marcus, the Reaper, looking far more composed than the broken man she'd helped roadside. He approached slowly, hands visible and non-threatening, while behind him, bikers began removing helmets, revealing faces that ranged from curiosity to respect. Lin Chen, Marcus said, his voice carrying in the concrete space, we came to say thank you. He gestured to the assembled riders. All of us, for reminding me what actually matters, for showing kindness when I needed it most. Lin stared at the hundreds of bikers surrounding her, trying to process this surreal scene. The Devil's Brotherhood patches were everywhere, along with representatives from other clubs, Iron Souls, Road Reapers, Nomad Kings, chapters from across the Pacific Northwest who'd heard about Marcus's story and chosen to ride in solidarity. They'd come from Seattle, Tacoma, Eugene, even Spokane, converging on Portland in a show of respect that transcended club boundaries. You didn't need to do this, Lin managed, overwhelmed. I just helped you find your way. Anyone would have done the same. But even as she spoke, she knew it wasn't true. Most people would have driven past, unwilling to risk involvement with someone who looked like Marcus. Her choice to stop, to help, to offer trust, that had been extraordinary, even if she'd considered it merely human decency. Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. That's exactly why we came. Because you treated me like a human being when you had every reason not to. Because in your eyes, I wasn't a scary biker or a dangerous stranger. I was just someone who needed help. That kind of seeing, that kind of kindness, it's rare, worth celebrating. Behind him, a biker stepped forward, carrying an enormous bouquet of flowers. Another held a leather jacket with custom embroidery. A third presented an envelope that Lin suspected contained far more money than the hour of her time deserved. But Prophet, the club president, raised a hand, stopping the presentations. The gifts are just symbols, Prophet said, his voice gravelly but warm. What we really want is to offer you honorary membership. Not in the club, we don't do that. But in our family, you helped one of our brothers in his darkest moment. That makes you pack. means you've got almost 1,000 people across 3 states who've got your back. The offer hung in the morning air, monumental in its sincerity. Lin looked at the assembled bikers, seeing past the intimidating exterior to the loyalty and genuine emotion beneath. These were men who'd ridden hundreds of miles at dawn simply to thank someone who'd shown basic human kindness. The gesture revealed something profound about honor, about the codes that governed their world, about the ways marginalized communities created their own definitions of family and obligation. "I am very honored," Lin said carefully, her accent thickening with emotion. "But I am just nurse. I help people. It is my job, my purpose. What I did for Marcus, I would do for anyone who needed help." She paused, searching for words that would bridge the cultural and social distance between them. "In China, we call this Yuan Fen, a relationship by fate or destiny. Maybe we were supposed to meet that day. Maybe his daughter guided him to someone who would understand grief, who would help him find his way to say goodbye properly." The mention of Sarah silenced even the most gruff bikers. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting her interpretation. "You're right. Sarah would have liked you. She was always trying to get me to see past surfaces, to recognize good people wherever they appeared. You gave me one last gift from her, a reminder that the world is bigger and kinder than I'd let myself believe." Prophet stepped closer to Lin, his expression respectful. "The offer stands, regardless. You ever need anything, car trouble, hospital politics, someone giving you grief, you call. We take care of our own, and you're ours now, whether you wear a patch or not." He handed her a card with a phone number. "Direct line, day or night. No question is too small, no problem too large." Lin accepted the card, understanding this was about far more than practical assistance. The bikers began departing in waves, engines roaring to life in a symphony of chrome and power. But they didn't leave empty-handed. Each rider who passed Lin offered a nod, a thank you, a moment of recognition. Some shared their own stories of strangers who'd helped during dark times. Others simply expressed gratitude for her willingness to see beyond appearances. The parade of humanity was overwhelming, beautiful, completely unexpected. Marcus remained after the others left, standing beside his Harley in the now quiet parking structure. "I wanted you to know, I'm making changes. Stepping back from some club responsibilities, reconnecting with people I've neglected. Janet, Sarah's mum, and I are talking properly for the first time in years. I'm even considering counseling, working through the grief instead of riding away from it." He smiled self-consciously. Sarah would probably fall over in shock, her old man actually dealing with feelings. Lin laughed softly. "Your daughter would be very proud. Taking first step is always hardest." "But you already did that. You asked for help when you needed it. That takes great courage." She hesitated, then added, "I work night shifts most weeks. If you are ever in Portland, need to talk, need reminder of why you are doing this hard work, you can find me. Coffee, conversation, no judgment. Just two people who understand that sometimes we all get lost, need help finding way back." Marcus nodded, memorizing her kindness, storing it against future darkness. "Thank you, Lin Chen. For everything. The map, the food, the reminder that strangers can become family in the space of an hour. You saved my life last week, even if I wasn't in physical danger. You saved something more important, my capacity to believe in human goodness." He mounted his bike, started the engine, then paused for one final wave before riding down the exit ramp.